Okay, so now I'd like to introduce our speakers tonight, Renee Roy and Dr. Melissa Magnuson. Renee graduated in 2017 with her master's degree in communications from SNHU and is currently the client services manager at All Pets Veterinary Hospital in Nashua, New Hampshire. Renee has 4 cats, Oakley, Annabelle, Figaro, and Domino. Dr. Melissa Magnuson is the owner of Canopy Lake Veterinary Hospital in Windham, New Hampshire, which is a sister site to All Pets. A native of southern Minnesota, where she grew up on a small pig and cattle farm, she always wanted to be a veterinarian and fulfill her lifelong passion of helping animals. Dr. Magnuson is married to her best friend, Andy, with whom she has 3 beautiful daughters, has a lot of pets that include 4 dogs, 3 cats, a bird, a bearded dragon, and a guinea pig. We're so excited to have you both here with us tonight to speak about how to best prepare for your new potential friend and touch upon what current issues the industry is facing. So welcome to you both, and I will toss it over to you to start the session.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is truly a pleasure for me. As Allie mentioned, I'm a very proud graduate of Southern New Hampshire University. And when I graduated back in 2017, I was embarking on a career in the journalism field. I never would have imagined I'd be here now, but I wouldn't change it for the world. So to give you a little bit more information, Dr. Magnuson is also the practice owner of Greenland Veterinary Hospital in Greenland, New Hampshire. And then she is not only a veterinarian, but she's also a published author. And today I'm going to get to pose as the potential new owner of a furry friend, dust off my reporting skills, and I've got some questions for her. Dr. Magnuson, are you ready?
I'm ready, Renee.
All right, so I've been on social media. I keep seeing pictures of cute puppies and kittens and guinea pigs, and there's videos of them doing tricks. And I really think I want to add a pet to my life. Where do I start?
So that is a very good question, because there's a lot of different pet options out there. And depending on the type of lifestyle that you have, the place where you live, your family members, and those types of things are all things to consider before you purchase a pet. And so probably the number one thing that you need to think about before you purchase a pet is your financial situation. Pets cost money. And sometimes they cost a lot of money, especially if they need medical care. And so that's one of the big things that you need to be researching is how much will this pet actually cost me? So if you're looking to purchase, say, a pocket pet, like a hamster, a guinea pig, even like a ferret or a rabbit, some people think, oh, they don't cost very much. I can get those set up pretty easily and that type of thing. But they actually, when you start adding up everything, like the enclosure, the food, how long they're going to live, how many years I need to spend on this, any type of medical care, it all adds up. So you need to do your research as far as what your finances are going to be. So for example, if you're looking to get a dog, you may adopt a dog for, say, $250. But the medical care on a dog, just for basic medical care, you're looking at spending about $500 a year for the basic medical care of a dog. And then if something does happen to your pet and needs additional medical care, it's not unusual for a dog to need something that's $5,000 to $10,000 in that year to help save that animal if there is medical care. So number one, your financial situation is what you need to figure out. Number two, you need to figure out your family situation, make sure no one's allergic to the pet, make sure no one's scared of the pet, and make sure people can care for the pet properly. Some people think, oh, I'll get a hamster because that's really, really easy. They still need care. They still need interaction. They still need connection with you. And maybe a cat, if you're thinking about getting a cat, it requires you to scoop the litter box every day. And cats really, really need social interaction. They are so playful and so inquisitive, and oftentimes playful and inquisitive in the middle of the night. And so you need to be prepared for that, and so do your family members. And so when you're deciding on that pet, you need to figure out what is going to fit best with your family. And I think last with that, the financial situation and what fits well with your family, you also need to think about this is a life long commitment in some cases. So some dogs can live, easily 15 to 20 years. Many cats live 15 to 20 years. But say you're looking for a bird. Some birds live 100 years. Some tortoises live 100 years. Most people don't live that long. So you need to make sure you have a succession plan also if you're trying to choose one of those pets.
Thank you so much, Dr. Magnuson. So I have all this great information now. I think I'm siding maybe with a dog or a cat. Where do I start looking? How do I know if an organization is reputable?
So depending on where you want to get a pet, most people have an idea if I want to get a rescue or if I want to go to a breeder. And so many people, and I do promote this as well, is looking into rescues to find animals that are already there and already need great homes. And so in Nashua, the Humane Society for Greater Nashua is a place to start. Also, if you are maybe on the seacoast in New Hampshire, there is the NHSPCA. There's also the shelter in Manchester. Down in Methuen, there's the MSPCA down in Methuen, Massachusetts. There's also a lot of smaller rescues around that you can look at. And those like Animal Rescue Network of New England, and a lot of these you can find online. If you do find some of these rescues online, you need to make sure that they are reputable. The shelters that we have in the area that are established are very reputable places to go. But some of the online places, you need to do your research and make sure that they are reputable. So that's the one way to go, is through the shelter or through a rescue. And then your other way is through a breeder. With a breeder, you want to be really making sure that they are reputable and checking references. Asking who have you sold your pets to, and can I talk to these people? And if they're reputable breeders, they will give you good references to talk to make sure that you are getting a healthy pet and that you're dealing with someone who's doing a very good job.
Perfect, Dr. Magnuson, thank you. So I think I found the perfect place now to adopt, and I really want to know, what are some questions I should ask either that rescue or the breeder prior to adopting that pet?
I think if you're looking, especially if you're looking for a cat or dog, we need to understand their behavior and what kind of animal you're getting. So sometimes, and this applies to cats and dogs, some animals are lazier and laid back and really chill, where some animals are really high energy. And so we were talking earlier, and someone was telling that they had a mixed breed Australian Shepherd, and it was, a lab. Mm-hmm. Those are two really high strung dogs that are going to be high energy and require a lot of interaction. So you're going to have to walk, you're going to have to engage with them, and you're going to have to plan for that. So you need a really active family. Now, let's say that your family's not so active and you maybe want more of a laid back style, then you might be looking at something like a pug breed or something like that that's a little bit more chill, or even a basset hound, those that are kind of lazy and want to lay around. You also need to think about children. If you have children, please, please, please never, ever, ever get a pet for your child alone. Because the thing is as an adult, you are the one responsible for it. Your child would love a pet. Your child would love a really cute kitty or a really cute puppy, but they will love it for probably a week, and then you will have to take care of it. So make sure that you, as being the main person in the household, are really ready for that pet, because you will be taking care of it. You don't want to get a pet for your children. Your 5-year-old will not take care of it long term, I promise you. And so that really, you really have to look into that, and you really have to ask the people at the rescue, what is the behavior of this pet? Is it good with kids? What is it? Is it high energy? Is it low energy? And does it have any past medical history? That's also important to find out, because if there is a medical problem that comes along with the pet, you need to be prepared for that financially. There are a lot of chronic diseases which can be very well managed but it does cost money. So I think that's important to be prepared for that.
Perfect, Dr. Magnuson. So I've made the decision. I've adopted. I'm going to need a trainer. I'm going to need a groomer. When I go away, I'm going to need a pet sitter. And I'm going to need a veterinarian. So how do I go about finding services, veterinary services for my pet?
So to find veterinary services, a lot of times, depending on the type of pet you have, it has to do with location. Some animals don't travel well in cars. If you've trained your animal to go into a car, that makes it a little bit easier, but sometimes they don't travel well in cars. So if your vet is 1 mile away and your cat is screaming the whole way, you can tolerate that. But if your veterinarian is 10 miles away, that ride isn't going to be very fun for your pet. It's going to be very, very stressed. And so location, I think, is important. The next thing is I would look for what is called an AHA accredited hospital. And that's a hospital that is accredited by the American Animal Hospital Association. All 3 of our hospitals are accredited by the American Hospital Association, and it brings a new, it's a level of standard of care that these hospitals are doing, and you can be assured that you're going to get high quality, great veterinary care for your pet.
Perfect. So you described at the beginning of our conversation, budgeting and veterinary services are expensive. What are some things I should plan for and some things that maybe I wouldn't expect to plan for budget-wise?
So budget-wise, you're going to need to feed your pet. You're going to need to have things to care for your pet, whether it's a bed or litter boxes or kennels and things like that. Or if you're getting a rabbit, you need a cage and all those types of things. So you need to budget for just general care. And then when you budget for veterinary services, one of the things that we recommend for all pet owners is pet insurance. It is wildly available now. There's so many kinds of pet insurance, and do your due diligence with that. And I highly, highly recommend pet insurance, because it is not unusual for your pet to do something really silly and then you're in a bind and it's going to cost you a lot of money. And I have had several people that are just so pleased that they did pet insurance because their pet ate something they weren't supposed to. Maybe they ran outside and they hurt their leg or something like that. And then it makes pet care much more affordable if you factor that in.
I keep seeing lots of ads for all these different pet insurances now. How do I know what might be the best one for me? What are some things I should consider?
So with pet insurance, you need to look for a company that is reputable and has been around for at least 5 to 6 years. So I'd stay away from companies which are brand new. And I would make sure and ask, how long has your company been around? Most of the pet insurance companies have online calculators, and you can figure out how much that premium is going to cost you based on the age of your pet and what kind of pet that you have. The other thing that you can look at is make sure you look at what the deductible is, as well as what exclusions there may be. So if you're getting a rescue pet and it does have a medical issue, you are most likely going to be excluded with that medical issue. So let's say you're adopting a pet that maybe has underlying heart disease. That insurance company is going to exclude you from anything that has to do with the heart. So read that information and know that they're going to exclude you on that. And when you get pet insurance, oftentimes you want to get it before you get your pet. And that doesn't make sense to a lot of people because they're like, well, I don't have my pet yet. Why would I need the pet insurance? You want to get the insurance beforehand and get it established. The reason being is they're going to cover you for more things. And that's very important. And so I would recommend finding 3 pet insurances and then weigh them against each other about who has the best things. There's many of them out there, and I can't really say there's one that's better than another. And I have many clients that use all different ones. And so it's a matter of doing your research, finding what fits your budget, and making sure that the things you need covered are going to be covered.
Perfect. Dr. Magnuson, you've seen a lot of great adoption stories as your years in the veterinary industry. Could you share some post-adoption snags that some of your clients may have run into and kind of how to navigate resources when they've, occurred those snags?
Sure. Yeah, that happens. So what happens is people will adopt a pet and then they bring it to their veterinarian. And then the veterinarian finds problems. And then they kind of feel like, oh, did I get a lemon? Why didn't anybody tell me about this? And what happens is a lot of these rescue animals are coming up from the south and they're being vetted rather quickly to get them onto trucks and get them up here. And it's not necessarily that they did it to sneak it in or anything like that, but some things are missed and you can run across snags. And we find things as veterinarians which you may not know that things have. And then things can develop later, especially like for an example would be dogs that come up from the south that may have heartworm disease or may have parasitic disease inside of them. They didn't test positive when they were in the south, and that's because parasites grow. And like heartworm disease takes 6 months to grow inside the heart before we can even detect it. And so your pet can be positive for a disease and then it can show up 6 months later. And when that happens, you are responsible for that, not the rescue, you are. And so you do need to be prepared for those types of things because medical situations can pop up at any time.
Thank you, Dr. Magnuson. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. And now I've taken all your advice. I've got a new pet. Things are going great. I've got my budget. How am I going to know when I'm ready for more pets?
So I have a lot of, that's a good question. I have a lot of people who get their first dog and that first dog is the greatest dog they've ever had. And it listens, it sits, it does everything it's supposed to. And so they want to get another dog. And I always tell people, your next dog will not be like your first dog. I promise you, because you have this idea of what the dog should be. No two pets are ever the same, ever. It doesn't happen. So you're going to get a different personality and they're going to have to get along. And again, you kind of go through the same steps that you did the first time with getting a pet. Can I financially afford this? Does my house, will this accommodate this? Will my family accommodate this? Is this going to work together? And plus, if you're mixing pets, say like a cat and a dog, or a cat and a rabbit, or a dog and a rabbit, you need to make sure that those pets are compatible. Some pets are not compatible. So for instance, let's say that you've adopted a husky, which is a breed of dog which has a really high prey drive. And they like to chase things and they like to catch things and eat things. So having a husky and then getting a cat or a rabbit might not be a good combination. So you want to look into those things and make sure that you're making good choices if you're going to mix pet species. And also, even if you're not mixing pet species, making sure that the dogs are compatible or the cats are compatible or your rabbits are compatible, making sure that everybody gets along. Because as we know, sometimes people don't get along and you could never live with somebody. And so if you're getting that animal, you need to make sure that they actually get along, because it won't be very much fun in your household if you have two animals that just really don't mesh.
Thank you, Dr. Magnuson. This has been a lot of really great beneficial information. And what I really wanted you to share with everyone now is what are some of the challenges we're currently facing in the veterinary industry?
So the challenges right now in the veterinary industry are mostly related to the veterinarian shortage. So, and this is pre-pandemic. So this is prior to 2020. The pet population has been booming, which is great because people have learned that, sharing their lives with an animal is really rewarding. It's rewarding for the pet. It's rewarding for us. And so we have been, since about 2018, been struggling with finding veterinarians to fill the pet population growth. And so then we add on top of that the pandemic, which a lot of people went out and got pets because they were home all the time. and it's become very, very busy. And it can be difficult to get pet appointments. And once you get that pet appointment, sometimes there can be a bit of a wait, because there's not only veterinary shortages, there's also veterinary staff shortages. For all the same reasons there's staff shortages everywhere. It's just finding people to fill those roles. And so sometimes what can happen is your appointment times can run longer. You may not be able to get your pet in when you want to get your pet in. And also there are rising costs as well associated with that, because just like with all the other shortages that are here, costs go up. We can't get a lot of our medications right now that we used to be able to get, and we have to pay more money for them. And so we have to pass that along to the consumer in order to make everything work. And so costs have definitely gone up. So pet insurance is that makes pet insurance even more important. And then just being very patient and understanding of your veterinarian and their hospital, and that they are doing the absolute best they can. They love pets and they want to help you, but it might not come as fast as you wanted. We're not McDonald's. You can't go in, order a cheeseburger and leave in 10, 15 minutes. Working up medical cases take a while, and your vet's trying to do the best job, and those employees are trying to do their best job because they really want to give the best care possible.
Thank you so much, Dr. Magnuson. Allie, I don't know if you want to open it up to some questions now for Dr. Magnuson.
Sure, that was so great. I really appreciate all of your energy and the answers that you provided. I think it was really well-rounded, and hopefully answered most of the questions that folks have, but also just want to open it up and see if any other lingering questions from the folks that are here tonight.
Yeah, I'll throw one out there. Thank you again for that. That was very insightful. So mine is for like pets in an apartment setting. You talked about like how location is really like key. No one loves like the neighbor that has the dog that's like howling like all night, but like it's something that I've thought of about like when getting a dog, and right now a lot of people are working from home, but when you go back to the office, like that can be kind of difficult to manage when you have people so close to you. So I guess like what are some pieces of advice that you might have for like people with pets, preferably dogs, that might make some noise when you're out of the house?
It's a good question. So with dogs, if you're looking for a dog that's maybe a quieter dog, you want to make sure that you get perhaps a toy breed or a breed that's not a working breed. Working breeds like to bark because that's how they move cattle or move sheep and things like that. They use their voice. And there are actually breeds that don't bark very much. And Google is wonderful now because you can Google a lot of that, and you can find, what's a breed that doesn't bark very much. And if you're getting something from a shelter, you can always ask, is this a quiet dog? Does this dog go into a crate easily? Does it have any separation anxiety? Does it seem pretty calm when it's left alone? Those are all really important things to ask, because the shelters typically know what type of dog they've been dealing with, because it's been in the shelter and they've been able to look at it and see and listen and find out which ones are the quiet ones. A lot of times you want to look for that right personality, especially if you're going to be in an apartment. So if you're a really active person and you live in an apartment and you want to go take your dog out all the time and you want to walk it and that type of thing, get an active dog. But if you're not a very active person and you're living in an apartment, there are dogs that work really well in apartment situations that are kind of lazy, actually. I own a Chihuahua, and she's a lap dog, and she pretty much, if you're sitting, she's sitting on you, and if you're walking around, she's staring at you, waiting for you to sit down so she can sit on you. And so there are breeds out there that will be chill in an apartment and work really well. And so it's a matter of just doing your research and finding out, will that work? And if you go through a shelter situation or something like that, just be really, really ask and find out, is this dog quiet? And you can actually see if it is or not, because if you go in the back and that dog is barking, 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 you can guarantee it's probably going to be barking in your apartment as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm curious your thoughts on doggy daycare and if you think that it should be integrated into the lifestyle of a new pet, if it's a young pet for social skills, or 'cause that comes at a cost and also a responsibility of dropping the dog off at the doggy daycare facility and picking it up. I'm just curious your thoughts on that. As I know, I have friends who have like German Shepherds or other dogs, and they're like, I drop them off like 2 days a week, get energy out. But I don't think it's required, but I'm curious your stance on integrating that into the lifestyle of a pet.
Yeah, so it depends on the dog and it depends on your lifestyle as well. A lot of people use doggy daycare. And as you said, you are absolutely correct. Is a lot of times it's to get energy out, get socialization, those types of things. Not all dogs are made for doggy daycare. Some dogs love it. They love to go there. They have a great time. They run, they play, they do lots of fun things and dog things, and I think it's great. But there are some dogs who are a little bit stressed about going. And if your dog is stressed about going to doggy daycare, I do not recommend it. It's similar to, think of dogs. I always think of dogs when you think of people. So there's people who like to be in situations where there's lots of people around because they get lots of energy from that and they really enjoy it. But then there's some people who are introverts and they don't want to be around a lot of people, and it actually brings them a lot of anxiety. And so if your pet or if your dog is that kind of a dog and it goes to doggy daycare and maybe it sits in a corner and it shakes all day, it's not very much fun for him. And so it really depends on the type of dog you have. And also research your doggy daycares. Depending if you have big dogs, small dogs, medium dogs, I like the daycares that separate them out, keep the big dogs together, keep the medium dogs together, keep the small dogs together, just for injury prevention. There's some people mix them all, and the smaller dogs can lose out just because of size. And so I like the doggy daycares that actually separate out the big dogs and the small dogs and that types of thing. If you do take your dog to doggy daycare, though, it's just like if you take your child to a daycare. Expect that there may be injury, there may be disease. Things like that may happen because anytime you throw a whole bunch of animals together, you increase your chances of things happening.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. In terms of, right, like the reputable sites, like what are, I guess, like maybe 3 or whatever couple pieces that would make for an adoption site like something that's reputable, whether that's like reviews or, right, like testimonials, but for somebody that's starting to research different adoption agencies, how would you know it's a good one?
It can be tricky to find out, but they should be. So most of these rescues are 501c3s, and they should have that posted on their website that they're actually a registered nonprofit. If they're doing it for profit, I would not go there. And so make sure that they are registered to do that. You can also ask for references. Who has adopted through you? And I'd like to talk to some of those people, and if they say, oh, we don't do that, then I wouldn't adopt from them, because they should be able to give you references of people who have adopted through them. And you should be able to see how long they've been in business, usually through their websites, and see what they're doing. And you can, the internet is so great right now. As you know, you can Google anything. And so you can search them and just do a regular search and see what people are saying about them. They usually have Facebook pages as well, and you can look at the reviews on their Facebook page and find out if they are reputable. It's kind of like anything else right now. There's always reviews, there's Facebook pages, there's those types of things. And so you just really have to do your due diligence. Just because you found a particular site, start asking around. And one of the things I always tell people, if someone's in, you know, kind of, they're like, oh, I want to get this dog, you know, if you're on Facebook, use that as an avenue. I'm thinking about adopting this. Where did you get your dog? You know, who adopted and had a great experience? Get a recommendation. I think that's really important, because if somebody else had a good experience through another rescue, they're going to tell you about it. Or if they had a not so good experience, they're going to tell you about that too. So, you know, use our social media platforms and that type of thing to get information, because I think it's a really nice way to get feedback and also get great recommendations as to where other people have gotten their pets.
Sort of following up, but along the lines of training, and again, this is another dog question, but in my head, like, I can think of, there are, you know, people that self-train, you know, their pets through, like, you know, YouTube's a wonderful thing, like you said, Google, and then there are sort of like the pet stores that do like the sort of like group classes, and then there are like the one-on-one sort of like personalized trainers. Do you have a preference, I guess, from your perspective? Is it more about the breed of dog, or, you know, obviously, you know, I think the goal is to get a well-trained pet. So do you find one more successful than the other?
I find that if we're talking about a dog, you definitely need to have it trained. And I always recommend group training to start. That's the first thing that I recommend. And there's great training facilities around. In Manchester, there is All Dogs Gym. In Amherst, there's American Canine Country. There is All Breeds in Pelham, New Hampshire. The MSPCA in Methuen also has great training, as does the NHSPCA. So there's, and that's just a few. There's so many more. And I recommend starting with group training and getting in with either a basic obedience or a puppy class. The reason being is that it's like school. And so when we go to school, we have to learn to get along with all the different kids in our class. We have to get along with the teacher, and we have to learn all of our P's and Q's, so to speak. And so does your dog. And so when you're in a social situation, it's easier actually, because your dog starts to learn how to get along with other people, other dogs, and you've got the trainer right there to help you. And so I always think your first training class should be a group class. That's what I would start with, unless you have a highly reactive dog. And that's a dog that doesn't like other people or doesn't like other dogs. And then I would look at a private training session. But the first thing I usually recommend doing is doing a group training session, like a basic obedience or something like that, to get your feet wet and learn the basics. I don't recommend, if you've never had a pet before and you've never trained a pet before, there are online things that you can do, but being in person and being around other pets and other people and having that trainer present is so valuable. So that is the first place that I would recommend going.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions that folks have right now before we wrap up?
I'll follow up with one. Another
Go
one.
for it.
So both of the dogs in my family have had, one was a golden retriever, the other was the shepherd and lab mix. Both extremely well-trained dogs, but out in public, they are very reactive, not in the sense that they're aggressive, but put it this way, like I'm always jealous of the people that are sitting at the cafe with their dog at their feet, and people walk by the street and it's as if they're not there. Tips for like as dogs get older, like once you go through those puppy classes and the obedience training, like best ways to socialize dogs so that way, you know, being around other people isn't, you know, as much of a big deal.
So we talked about those first classes that you take, like the basic obedience. Keep taking classes. A lot of people think, well, I took my basic obedience class, my dog should be trained. It's sort of like sending your child to preschool and then stopping. And so you want to keep going. And there are so many different levels of obedience. And in order to get that dog that sits by your feet at a coffee shop, you probably need to have like 6 to 7 obedient classes under your, you know, belt before that's actually going to happen. There are some basic commands which can take a lifetime to actually train. So recall in a dog, and that's when you tell your dog come, and they instantly come, and instead of just staring at you and sitting there. Recall is something that takes years to train. You cannot teach recall in, you know, 8 weeks. You teach recall in like 8 years, and they keep getting better and better at it. Your journey with your dog and training your dog is the same thing as your own journey in your education. You know, if you're going to go to school, you know, for, you know, 6 or 7 years, and then you're going to stop learning, and you're going to stop growing, and it's going to stop right there. Same thing with a dog. Once you stop that training, it stops. But you can keep going, and your dog can learn more and more. They are so bright and so very trainable. So I always tell people, just keep going with the training. Most dogs need that. It is a rare, I have 4 dogs, and one of my dogs, she's just great. She's the kind of dog that would sit at a coffee shop, and she was very easy to train because it's just in her. My other 3, not at all. They need a lifetime of training, and that is more of the typical. So keep that in mind with any pet that you're getting, any dog that you're getting, is the training is long-term.
Thank you very much. Good point. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, I have one more question, and that is, what are a few benefits of having a pet? Why should we have pets? I mean, I know my dog brings me immense joy and happiness, but from your perspective, if there's any benefits you'd like to share, that'd be great.
That's probably my most favorite question. The human-animal bond, I think, is just so important. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, is the human-animal bond and your pet connection, and what that means to you. Having a pet I believe our pets are here to teach us lessons. And I also think that your pet finds you and you don't find your pet. So what ends up happening is they teach us lessons, and one of the most important lessons that they can teach us is unconditional love. And I'm just going to talk about a dog because it's probably the easiest thing to talk about. Your dog, every time you walk through that door, it's like you've been away for 6 years, and they're so happy to see you. And they just have so much joy, and they're in the moment, and they can teach us to be there as well, and to learn to enjoy each moment and try to make the best of each moment. I mean, you can have your dog sit and give it a treat, and they think you've given it, you know, they've just won the lottery basically when you gave them a treat. Think about how excited they are. And so I think we can learn a lot from our pets. It's an important connection, and I think it's like through your heart is how we connect to our pets. Me personally, like, they're my therapist sometimes, you know. I can talk to them and they tell me I'm right. And, and they believe everything I say. And that is truly therapeutic. and they're there for you. You know, if you've had a really bad day, or if someone said something really nasty to you, they're going to be happy, and they're going to lick your face and tell you how great you are and how pretty you are and how amazing you are. And that's why I think pets are so important, because they're always there for us, and they don't have any judgment, and it's that complete unconditional love all the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention before Renee just talks a little bit about the book, and Dr. Magnuson, you can as well, but they're just going to say a quick little blurb about the book. But just a reminder, like, you are not required or obligated to purchase the book. And the employers of these two lovely women are not affiliated or endorsed by SNHU, but they're going to say a little bit about the book.
Sure. So Animality, How People and Pets Connect. Dr. Magnuson wrote this book, and she actually had gifted it to me several years ago. It took me 2 days to read it. I couldn't put it down. And if you really enjoyed today, this is really a great holiday treat, either for another potential pet owner, someone who already has pets, or even for yourself. Dr. Magnuson, do you want to just talk a little bit about your book before we close?
Sure. So what Animality means is your animal nature. Because we are all animals, and we're connected on all different levels. And it talks about how we too kind of need to go back to our animal nature, to our own intuition, to our own instincts and things like that. And I take people through my journey with my pets that I grew up with. And then I go into my veterinary career and what all of my clients and their pets have taught me. And it has really been a wonderful journey. And then I take that through until the end, which is when your pets depart, which is a really, really tough time. But it's also a beautiful time, because in veterinary medicine, a lot of people think this is a terrible thing, but I actually think it's a really good thing, is we have euthanasia. And so we can make that decision for our pets if our pets are suffering, to give them a peaceful death. And we can't do that in human medicine. In human medicine, we do have to sometimes watch our loved ones suffer when we don't want them to suffer. And that's very, very difficult. But in animal medicine, we have a choice. And even though that choice is very difficult, that's another part of my book that I talk about, and how beautiful it actually can be. And those are important lessons to learn. So
Dr. Magnuson's book is available on Amazon, so definitely check it out. It's really very heartwarming, and it's a great read.
Awesome. Well, I know we're a few minutes over, so thanks for hanging in with us. Just want to say thank you to everyone here tonight, Renee and Dr. Magnuson, for doing your thing, sharing all of the information for the folks here tonight and the folks that will be watching this later about how to adopt, how to find breeders, all the things about pets and finding your next potential friend. So just want to say thank you again, and hope you all enjoyed the event.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
so
everyone.
much.